The International Court of Justice holds the first hearing on the sovereignty of Pedra Branca and its outcrops on Tuesday. And this comes over 4 years later after Singapore and Malaysia brought the issue to the ICJ. Singapore has exercised sovereignty over the island and its outcrops since 1847, when the British colonial government built the Horsburgh Lighthouse there. The island, about the size of a football field, is located at the eastern entrance of the Singapore Strait. The case is now being heard in the ICJ because Malaysia lays claim to Pedra Branca Island. In 1979, Malaysia published a map of its territories and included Pedra Branca. Singapore objected this. Singapore argues that it has sovereignty over the island because of various factors, which include how it's conducting numerous activities there. The Singapore delegation includes Deputy Prime Minister and Law Minister S. Jayakumar and Chief Justice Chan Sik Keong. This hearing is taking place after 3 rounds of written arguments have been exchanged.
Here in the Peace Palace, the Singapore team will present their case first in the initial 4 days. Malaysia will get the following 4 days to do likewise. After that, both sides will have time to rebut each other's statements. The hearing is set for some 3 weeks. May Wong, Channel News Asia, in The Hague, Netherlands.
And May is now on the line from The Hague with the latest updates. The opening session has ended and we hear that 4 representatives from Singapore have spoken. So May, tell us, how did the first day of the hearing go?
Good evening, Genevieve. In fact, the hearing went very well. The Singapore team of over 30 members were all prepared and they were armed with geographical maps that were being flashed periodically on screens inside the courtroom for the judges to see as they follow the cases being pleaded. Singapore argued that Pedra Branca Island and its 2 outcrops rightfully belongs to the Lion City, and Professor Koh stated that Singapore owns the island and has consistently maintained and exercised their sovereignty. One example that Professor Koh brought up in court, a letter written by the state of Johor then in 1953 and was sent to Singapore then. In that letter, the Johor government said Pedra Branca did not belong to them. Professor Koh said Malaysia claims that the British sought permission from Johor to build the Horsburgh Lighthouse, but he said Malaysia never provided any evidence to support that. Chief Justice Chan Sik Keong also spoke on the first day of the hearing, and he laid out facts and evidence to show that Malaysia has portrayed an inaccurate account of the history concerning the ownership of Pedra Branca. Chief Justice Chan also cited how Malaysia argued that Pedra Branca was actually part of the Johor Sultanate from time immemorial. But the Chief Justice said this is, in his words, no more than clutching at straws without any evidence to prove. Attorney General Chow Hick Sin spoke on the geographical setting and also gave background of the dispute to the judges. He also later played an audio recording of Malaysia's former Prime Minister Tun Hussein Onn from May 1980 at a news conference then with Singapore's Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew. And in that audio, very interestingly, the Malaysian Prime Minister then admitted that the question of sovereignty over Pedra Branca was not very clear to Malaysia. So Singapore's International Counsel, Professor Alain Pelle, also made his arguments in French as the last speaker wrapping up today's session. He rebutted Malaysia's claim of an original historical title of Pedra Branca. Professor Pelle will continue his arguments on Wednesday, followed by other international counsel for Singapore. So I'll continue to keep you updated from The Hague here at the International Court of Justice.